Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I'm going to review the TOPSKY F7X FPV goggles. I was really excited when I placed the order because the specifications of these goggles is very impressive, and I thought that maybe we've got the FatShark killers everybody is talking about. But if you've already seen the reviews of these goggles, unfortunately this is not the case with these goggles, and they suffer from some major flaws, and even TOPSKY stopped selling these goggles until they are going to release a new fixed version. In this video I'm going to go over the good things and the bad things of these goggles, and hopefully TOPSKY are going to release an improved version soon and I will be able to test it out as well. So let's start by opening the box and see everything we're getting inside. Inside the box we're getting the instruction manual, which is pretty good and straight to the point, a shorter instruction manual, a brochure, and also a cleaning cloth, and the goggles and all the accessories that come in their bag, which is pretty useful and can fit all the accessories and the goggles of course, and it is just a little bit bigger than the case of the FatShark, so you can fit more accessories inside. Inside this case we get in the goggles, a charger which is really useful and is not included for example with FatShark goggles, an RCP cloverleaf antenna, and also these velcros that are used to mount this foam to this rubber faceplate. More on this later in this video. A 2200 2S LiPo battery, a receiver, AV cable, a micro HDMI to mini HDMI cable, and also these two HDMI adapters. The design of the goggles is pretty slick and draws a lot of attention, especially because of this reddish color. On the top we have the fan, which is pretty useful, and it can get a little bit loud when it turned on. In order to turn it on you have to just use this switch. On the bottom we have Ipd adjusters. You can adjust the Ipd distance between 58 to 72 millimeters. Data connector that is used for the head tracking module, DC in, AV in, audio jack out, micro HDMI port which is used to connect it to any HDMI source, RX on and off switch. We have over here the volume rockers, DVR controller, mode selector which is also used to change some settings, and channel up and down buttons. On the front of the goggles we have this proximity sensor that is supposed to turn off the goggles when you are not close to it. Unfortunately it doesn't work for me, and I'm not sure why. I didn't find any settings, so it is just not working, and the screen is always on even when the proximity sensor is not covered. We have these two 720p screens which are not working in the same manner as the FatShark goggles, because on the FatShark goggles you are just looking at the screen, and on these goggles the image is being reflected by mirrors and the screen is actually on top, which I'm not sure is a good thing or a bad thing, but this is just the way it works. In order to access the receiver bay you will have to remove this front visor, which is not very comfortable. Then on the left side of the goggles you can find here this RX bay, which is in reverse, and for example if you want to use this diversity receiver, the Pro RX, even if you manage to insert it, it's going to be in reversed. And there is a big issue. First of all, you can't put it inside, and even if you will manage to do so, then you wouldn't be able to use this visor. So even though TOPSKY advertised that it's compatible with any FatShark receiver, this is not the case, and probably the only fully compatible receiver with these goggles is the one which is included in this package. So in order to fit it, you just have to connect it in this manner, remove one of these rubbers, and you can see they included two of them, so maybe they are going to develop also a diversity receiver that will work with these goggles and probably is going to be sold separately. And on the right side we have this head tracker bay, and over here we have the micro SD slot. It supports up to 32 gigabytes, unlike the FatShark micro SD slot which support 64 gigabytes. And unfortunately, in order to access the SD card you're going to remove the visor as well, and this is not very comfortable. At least they could have added a micro USB port so you can access the contents of the SD card just by plugging a micro USB cable. So unfortunately in this design you have to take it off and then put it back. So that's one of the flaws they have in the design of these goggles. The goggles came with this rubber faceplate which you have to insert it around the goggles, and Unfortunately, this is also a big major flaw, and I'm not sure why they chose to use it, because it just falls off all the time, and in my opinion it's also not very comfortable to use. So even after you manage to put it on, I find that it keeps slipping and it falls off. When it stays in place, it's not that bad, and actually it's much more comfortable when you put this sponge on. But look again, in order to connect the sponge with this rubber plate, you will have to take this included velcro and just connect it, and this just doesn't make any sense, and it keeps falling and it is not well secured. So TOPSKY should have just kept to a faceplate design which FatShark used, and even the Ishin EV100 are using. The included battery has a bigger capacity than the ones which is included with the FatShark goggles. It has also this voltage indicator similar to the one that FatShark has. Of course, it's a little bit heavier than the FatShark goggles battery. It weighs 102 grams, whereas the FatShark battery weighs 90.21 grams. Even though it's a little bit bigger, the design is pretty good, it is well secured, and it's not going to fall off your head. The total weight of the goggles, including the battery and the receiver, is 323.6 grams, whereas the FatShark goggles, including the battery and the receiver, weighs 325.4 grams, so it's about the same weight. Just like the FatShark goggles, it doesn't have any on and off switch, so the moment you connect the battery, it immediately turns on. Changing the mode is done by pressing this button. It starts automatically on AV mode, so if the RX is going to be turned off, it's going to use the AV in, and if you turn it on, you can see we have this logo, and then the RX is working, and we can switch the channels just by pressing up and down. And on the top left, you can see the channel that we are currently using. If you long press the up button, it's going to scan to find the best signal, and this is a quite slow procedure. Pressing the mode selector again is going to switch to AV 3D, then again to HDMI 2D, and finally to HDMI 3D. Pressing this mode selector up will turn on the menu, and then you can change the brightness, contrast, color, and the language of this menu. In order to use the DVR, you will have to first long press this joystick button on the downside, and then you can see this rec indicator on top. If you're going to down press it again, it's going to flash, which means that now the DVR is recording. If you're going to swipe it to the right, it's going to snap a picture, and you're going to hear this double beep indicator that indicates that a photo was snapped. And if you want to access the DVR menu, you have to long press this button until this menu is going to appear. It's actually a little bit hard to see, but then it enables you to watch all the videos that were recorded, delete them, and so on. If you want to go back to the AV input, just press it up, and then it's just going to go back to AV mode. Now, even though it was advertised that this goggles has a selectable mode between 16:9 and 4:3 aspect ratio, this is not true, and these are 16:9 goggles, and you cannot change it anywhere, not by switch, not in the menu. It just cannot be selected. I was actually pretty curious to see how it's going to work, but unfortunately this feature does not exist in these goggles. Another issue that I had with these goggles is that when I used the RX, it worked fine, and you can see a difference between this 720p screen to the ones I had on my FatShark, which is 800 by 600 pixels. But the problem began when I used the HDMI input. The picture became a little bit blurry, and I could just not get it right, and I won't be able to show you how it looks from the inside because of the way these goggles work, but it is just not working as it should, and I wonder why it happens. And in addition, I have some specs inside the lens and I can't get it out. So this was just a quick overview of these goggles. I really hope that TOPSKY are going to issue a fixed version soon, and maybe they are going to compensate the ones that purchased these goggles like me, because they do suffer from some flaws. And just to list them up, do a better job with quality assurance and make sure that the lens are clean without any specs inside. Make sure the sensor is working if you want to include one, because mine is not working. Having the need to take off the front cover in order to access the micro SD slot is a big downside. And if you advertise that your goggles fully support FatShark module, make sure it's true, because you can't practically use these goggles with the standard FatShark compatible modules in the market, so you're going to use the one that is included with these goggles. Finally, ditch this rubber plate because it's not good. Use a sponge or a faceplate, and I think it's going to be much more comfortable than this thing. And I think that TOPSKY should listen more to the customers and maybe should have waited a little bit longer before releasing this product, which could have been a big hit, but if they could have been more patient and improved the flow, they could have had a much better product, because paying for something like that $350, whereas you need to pay more than $500 for a FatShark, could have been a great deal. I still haven't tested the DVR quality of these goggles, so what I'm going to do in one of my next videos, I'm going to take these goggles outside and compare the DVR quality of both my FatShark and the TOPSKY F7X, so hopefully they are going to perform well, at least in this field. As always, I thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it and you find it useful. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on my next videos. Goodbye.